name is Judy Collins. I am 72 and happy to be here and happy to share any experience that I have.
Judy Collins is 72. There are probably people who look back and think, but Judy Collins was just 22.
I know, I think that too myself. I was just 22 and suddenly it's today.
What is today for Judy Collins?
Today is a work day. I'll be in New York. I have a big travel schedule, about 100, well, last year was 120 shows a year, all kinds of things, concerts, of course. Speaking engagements, I sometimes do keynote speeches for organizations that raise money for mental health, for suicide prevention. I write books, which I've done this year. I've written my new book.
Let's look at let's just look at kind of like the Judy Collins output here.
The Irv for this year has been
this.
When You Wish Upon a Star on the Peter Yarrow imprint.
Which everybody can buy on Amazon.
Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, which is
your new CD.
My new CD, Bohemian.
And then we have this, which is about to come out.
When You Wish Upon a Star.
And then we have this whole other pile here of things.
Oh, yes.
So Judy Collins, let me ask you a question. You're still here, you say?
Yes.
Now, for you, what does that mean, and what light can you shed to women who may not have had the success that you've had, but to still be here? I mean, you're an icon, and you're current at the same time. You do more than 20 people. You look amazing. And you've been through your share of ups and downs.
Yes, well, like everyone, I have lost both my parents. My father in '68, my mother just 14 months ago, which broke my heart in a way that I was extremely close to my mother. But I was surprised by the depth of the grief. But you know, they say that every time you lose someone or have something deeply emotional happen to you in terms of loss, you do have to it brings up the other losses intensely. I've lost a son to suicide. That was 20 years ago this year. It's not ever going to be not there, and it's not ever going to get any better. But it's going to get somewhat easier. And I've always said that my son, in his death, has been probably my greatest teacher. And going through that and becoming as politically and socially active about the issue of suicide has been part of my process. You know, I've always been an activist. I've always been against the wars. I've always been for the 99%. I've always been for the worker and for human rights and civil rights. But I found that there was a taboo that I was up against, like a brick wall. And it was the taboo of suicide. So I decided I had to write about it. I've written a book called Sanity and Grace about that issue, strictly about suicide and my own loss, all of what I've experienced personally. I was also an attempter at 14, so I had always a preoccupation with suicide and what that's about, as most of us do. You know, we're human, and Camus says it's the most important philosophical question of anyone's life.
How did you come back from that? A mother losing a child to suicide is probably as hard of an event as you expect your parents to die at some point.
Yes.
As hard as that is. But you had your mother a long time, to be 72.
Yes, I had her for 94 years, and God bless her, she was amazing.
But to lose a son.
First of all, I immediately got help. When I went to Minnesota to the funeral, I went directly to a therapist before I went to the funeral, and she said, you know, the dialogue with your son will never be over. One of the most important things anybody ever said to me. I came home, I was a wreck, you know, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't talk, and I planned on shutting down everything, this whole industry of my life. And I got a phone call that probably helped save my life from Joan Rivers. And God bless her, Joan said, you cannot. She said, I know what you want to do. This is about 4 days after Clark's death. She said, I understand what you want to do. You want to close it down, you want to cut it off, you want to retreat and disappear, and you can't do that, because if you do that, you won't survive. And she knew, and she'd been there. So that helped me. I then I kept all the concerts that were laid on. My mother traveled with me, my sister traveled with me, my husband came out with me. I was all over at that point, the Rocky Mountains and Wyoming, and I don't know how those months passed, but they did. And I worked, and I worked, and I worked, and the work and the music began to carry me through. I finally got to be able to play the piano again. I would sit in the keys would be wet, and I would be sobbing, and I would say, okay, but you're going to practice, and you're going to try to sort this out musically and write some things about it. I also started writing, because I'm a journal keeper anyway, and I've written a number of books, as you know. And I started a journal, which I have never published, called How to Survive Suicide. Oh, it was called a lot of things. A Day at a Time. It was a day at a time book, like the one some of us read in the morning about how to get through life and so on. And so one day at a time, 365 days of getting through it. Now the main thing is to keep breathing and to stay on the planet. And then, of course, as I began to get well, I don't remember a lot about that year, but I do have it in journals. And what came out was more music, more songs, more writing. A book called Singing Lessons, which, although it wasn't about suicide, it was a biography that included his death. And then year by year, this kind of engine that seems to be part of my creative drive began to click in again and take hold of me. And because I was there and I was healthy and I did not drink when he died. I've been sober 33 years now, and at that point I had been sober, I think, 15 years, no, maybe 13 years. I was 53, maybe it was less than that, 78, 88, 14 years, I guess I was sober. But I didn't drink. And I didn't drink because I heard a lot of people talk about how they didn't drink when something terrible happened to them. And I had that background. I had meditation, I had prayer, I had therapists, I had sobriety, and I was able, with the use of my friends, and I went to recovery groups, suicide recovery groups. I talked to people about it, and I wrote about it.
What would you say to the people out there who suffer a trauma like this at this stage in their life? Or when you say you were 53 when Clark died.
Mm.
So that's sort of right in the ballpark of the group we're targeting.
Yeah.
But who don't have maybe your resources, who don't have maybe the talent of being able to create your way out of a mess through being able to express your pain in certain ways, and your commitment to recovery and to getting well in the ways that you have. What would you say to women out there who are grieving, who've lost a mother, who've lost a child, who've lost a spouse? Loss happens after a certain age more and more. And I find every year I lose more and more people. How do you not send some?
Every year more and more people go in my life to. You do the next right thing. You keep a certain number of things in your day that are going to be helpful. Always talk to somebody you love. Always find something to make you smile. Read a good book. Keep interested. Don't let things slide. Don't let friendships slide. Get therapy. Go to therapy. Write in a journal. Always write. No matter what happens, I write. Not every single day, but I catch up. I make sure that somehow my mind and heart knows where I've been and what I think about where I've been. The journaling helped enormously to me. And everybody can do journals, It doesn't matter what you do or how you make your living or how you spend your time. A journal will help you somehow to find out what you're doing. Julia Cameron has a wonderful new book out called The Prosperous Heart. She's the great kind of journal guru, The Artist's Way. And I started keeping journals years before I knew anything about Julia's writing, but everybody has kept journals through the centuries. So you have to find a way to reconnect with the energy in your universe, what's available to you. Husband, friends, co-workers, the internet. The internet's tremendously helpful. I mean, you can go and get information about compassionate friends, about suicide survivors. SOS, I think, is the name of that organization. And go to the libraries. When Clark died, there was nothing. in the bookstores, except 2 books. There was The Savage God, which I would never read because it doesn't talk about a solution, and I don't like things that don't talk about solutions. I don't want to hear about a problem unless somebody has reached, I mean, yes, we have to talk about our pain, but then the solution is what I want to hear from someone. What did you do? Well, I got up, I had my breakfast, I made my phone calls, I meditated. I read something powerful and something that made me feel more optimistic about life, whether you read the Bible or the philosophy books, whatever you read that gives you hope. And then keep your lunch date.
Keep your lunch.
Get dressed, make yourself look good, and feel good about how you look. Buy a new hat. I bought a new hat.
And this is something just as people feel despair in any part of their life. This would be
For any reason. For any reason. Also, you know what Emmett Fox says is, don't think about the problem. Think about whatever it is that's bigger than you and more powerful than you and more energetic and more hopeful and more alive than you are, which is, for some people it's God, for some people it's the ocean, for some people it's the sunrise.
Is it a song for Judy Collins?
It can be, although music, when I do it, is very healing to me. I like, I do love to listen to great music. I listen to a lot of classical music. Listen to the Adagio for strings, don't remember his name right off, but listen to it because it'll make you sob your eyes out, and that's also terribly important.
So one final closing bit of advice for women out there who've adored you for generations, what can you say?
Well, thanks.
If Judy Collins has one thing to say to the women and men of America, if she had one thing to say, what would it be that's gotten you this far, which is really far?
It's thank you, because you've been there. You've been the support. You've been sort of the underpinning of where I've gone professionally and personally and artistically. You've listened. You've accepted the changes. You've gone with me on this ride. First, thank you, and second, keep coming back.
Well, you're extraordinary. You're a life force. You're one of the great people I know, and
Thanks,
thank you for talking to us
Tracy.
today.